My name is Elizabeth Lord, nee Wallace. I'm an Australian by birth and grew up in the state of Queensland. And I say the state because we moved all around. My father was a headmaster, so I lived in 19 different places in Queensland. And then at one of those, after I had left school, I was working in a Midwestern Queensland town, having a very good time, but decided it was time I better do something sensible. And I got up one morning and said, I'll go nursing. And I did, which started my nursing career. I trained at the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital, where I've since found out lots of my ancestors also did. And then I got interested there in the first oncology sisters and workshops that were going on. It was right in the very early days of radiotherapy, and it was pretty crude in lots of ways against today's efforts, and it was very, very disturbing because up until then the word cancer just meant death. And there was a lot of people that we had to work very, very hard to show that they could still live a life with cancer or after cancer diagnosis. So that really interested me in people and what we were doing. I had to have an enforced break from that because in those days our monitoring of the radium that the staff were getting was pretty crude as well. And I had to have a 6-month break. So out of the blue, I just said, I'm going overseas. And again, off I went to have a working holiday. I did know some people over here. One of the girls I had trained with had married a seaman as well and lived in North Wales. So I toured while I got over here. I went round Europe, came back, worked for a while, get some more money, go to another part of Europe, and then was working, thinking my parents were going to come over and I suppose I'd have to go back to Australia. But I hadn't quite finished my thoughts of where I want to go in Europe. So I was finding it a bit difficult telling them that. And my friend in North Wales and a friend of theirs decided that they had a friend each that should meet. So I was supposed to be going on a blind date with this gentleman, and he didn't turn up because the ship was in. I heard that for the next 50 years because the ship was in. And he rang to apologise. I went back to London. He rang to apologise, and we started talking on the telephone. And we just fell into a most fantastic communication. There was no other words for it. He then invited me up just to see him and see Liverpool and Birkenhead where he lived. And so I travelled up from London to see this gentleman with nerves, but with a conviction that this was somebody special to me. And it turned out to be the truth. We met and we literally knew from that moment that we were going to be together for life. There was no other sort of thoughts in our heads that we weren't going to be together for life. We really hadn't thought of marrying, but then he realised that his family would not probably accept me, this person out of the blue, an Australian into the boot, that to without marriage. So we decided we'd get married. My parents, as I said before, were coming over on a holiday. We picked the weekend they were free, went and booked the wedding and reception, the whole lot, and then rang them in Australia to tell them to bring some good clothes with them. And we went the next day and told his parents. So nobody knew anybody. I met his parents on the first day, that day for the first time. And my parents only heard about him, that I wasn't living in London that day as well. So we had a wonderful surprise, but we had made up our minds that's what we were going to do. And it turned out to be a very happy day. We had determined there was some medical emergencies before the wedding, and we were informed that we would probably not have children together. Didn't matter, we were together. What's the difference? And we would know that there's a lot of other children out there that needed love. Following our happy day and week away, Alan had been a merchant seaman up until 2 years before I met him, when he was asked to come ashore. He was on large roll-on, roll-off container ships across the North Atlantic, and he realised then that in the merchant fleet, the British merchant fleet was going down in size because of containerisation, and he wanted to be forefront in the actual development of how the containerisation of British shipping went. So he agreed and came ashore and started work at the Royal Seaforth Container Terminal for Atlantic Container Line, a very big company that is still going. So we were ready to be settled in Liverpool. The doctors were wrong, and we took our first daughter out of hospital to christen her on our first wedding anniversary. They were very wrong. But a couple of emergency medical later, but we realised then that it was going to be British shipping wasn't having a good time of it, commercial shipping, so we needed 2 incomes. That became a problem. Working around ships and ship times in and out, because commercial shipping, merchant fleet shipping is very much on timetables and schedules, and me trying to find work in between time meant that I had to give up oncology. And I turned to the nearest form of giving care, whole care to people, which happened to be the geriatrics side of nursing. And I found that the same fears and the same needs to be wanted and heard and respected as a person, not a disease, was in that sector as well. So I could transfer a lot of my skills from oncology across to geriatric nursing. And I enjoyed it, because I think that there is a lot of older generation that have a lot of stories to tell, which the younger generation have not learnt to listen to. But as I said, medical emergencies come along, and surprise to all of us, we had another child. And our son was born. So it meant juggling shipping times, children, and work became the biggest juggling act out. We were at that stage unable to leave the phone untended. This is way before the times of mobile phones and things like that. And we happened to be the first emergency call number for any Cunard ship at sea. So we were in the unfortunate part of life that we couldn't not answer a telephone call, and we had to have someone around all the time to answer a call. It became very, very necessary during the Falklands War, because 2 of our ships, including the last one that Alan was captain on, went to the South Atlantic, and 1 didn't come back. And we lost some good friends on that ship. But it was part of what shipping is about and what life at sea is about. So we braced ourselves and went to 13 memorial services and 13 all over the country. Very, very hard 1982 for us all. But after that, we then said, right, let's get on with life and back to full-time work. The shipping industry had to go on. It was very, very hard, but it was very rewarding for my husband because he was developing the brand new ways of containerization and how containers are lashed to ships and they stay on board. So he was at the forefront doing his bit to make life at sea safer for everyone. That I say that in the context that if a container is lost overboard in open sea, another ship can hit it and damage the ship without even knowing or seeing it's there. So it became very important, particularly in commercial shipping, that they got new systems, and he was at the forefront of doing that, of which we're all very proud of him for doing that. And then he became the go-to man for everyone that needed heavy lifts going on ships and different interventions on how to lash things, etc. So unfortunately at this time, he developed diabetes, which in some people cannot always be controlled, and he wasn't able to control his, and he got lots of complications. So by the age of 60, he had to retire because his mobility had gone, and very much the case that containers make shipping areas very large, and if you aren't comfortable walking long miles, etc., to a ship, you are very handicapped. And at that stage, I also realised that he would need full-time care, and his care was very, very important to me. So I then had to look and think, am I going to do the same for him as I would have liked to have done for all those other people? And I said yes. So off I went. And I turned around and made him my life, to get him as many places as he wanted to go, out in the community as much as he wanted to be. He had been a member of the local Lions Club for 30 odd years and wanted to stay in the community helping others as much as possible. So we worked very hard at doing all those things. It became a we, not just him, but I didn't mind at all because it was still seeing the man I married doing the things he loved. It was hard for everyone, including our children, to see their father going from them at a very early age. They expected to see that same man there for the next 20 years. But that man changed very quickly into a very different personality in lots of ways, and changed his language, which was a little difficult to take, particularly if we were in public. And that was purely the disease of vascular dementia, which takes lots of people. But the man was still there inside. So we still had some lovely times. We still had some great days out. We still had lots of things to do. And over the years, we had some medical emergencies with him as well. And when our daughter, who is a specialist speech therapist, came in and said she wanted to go overseas, we had to say, "Of course, darling." We could not say anything else. Dad, having run away to sea and Mum ran away over to England, we could hardly say no. That left just one son in Epsom area and a grandson. So after a few years of trying to keep things going in Liverpool, where he had lived all his life, and we had loads of friends and we had loads of things, I took the momentous decision to move him south. And we looked around for accommodation down here and found a small flat in Tattenham Corner. It wasn't ideal. And it became very difficult looking after him there. Even more difficult in getting him out in the community because I was having to break into different parts of the community. And looking around and asking around, I said to people, did they know of any really nice nursing homes, etc., because I needed a break and I knew that Alan needed more care than just me. And somebody commented and said, "You have heard of the Royal Alfred at Banstead?" And unfortunately I hadn't. So we went to investigate and realised that he could come here. And we literally walked in. My daughter was home visiting. I was at breaking point, literally, a broken wreck. And we walked in and we just came through the doors and felt that calmness, that open spaces, that no figure of confinement, and realised that this could be the place for Alan. So a couple of days later, we brought him to have a look and to be assessed. And he immediately came through the doors like us, saw the space, saw the calmness, people around, but no jiggering or things. Were just calm, efficiency and warm welcome. And he actually was very happy to look at everything, to be part of it, and he knew, and he said, yes, I'll come here. We felt from that moment onwards just what the Royal Alfred could offer us. A place where he could relax, a place that took his wants and needs foremost to him, not a place that said, we do this in the home, we do that in the home. No, Alan, these are the things that happen in our home, and if you'd like to be part of them, you can. Or if you would like different food, we can organise that for you. So it was the complete turnaround from most of the nursing homes I had seen. And I had looked at a few, and I had worked in lots, and I had run some. So it was just the total opposite, and the absolute openness of people here that I was then prepared happily to hand his care over to. After a few weeks of adjustment from both of us, I got back what I hadn't had for 20 years. I became a wife again, not a carer, not that person that had to do everything, had to organise everything, had to be there to do the things. I became his wife. Nothing could take that away from you. That is the best feeling that you can possibly have. We had been together all those times. We had seen off loads of highs and loads of lows. But we were back as a couple again. And that was entirely what this place had given us. After a short while and meeting everyone and taking Alan with us down for drinks in the bar and things like that, and him joining in when he wanted to and when he could, everyone kept on suggesting to me, why didn't I move into the tenancy side? And I had thought about it when I'd read all the things, but hadn't fully considered it. But it was the best move that I made. So for the last months of Alan's life, I was just down the corridor from him. I could be there at the drop of a hat. I could go round, say goodnight to him without having to drive over for an hour and whatnot. I could go and get things he wanted. It was the best world I had. They then supported me so well through Alan's last days and through his memorial service here, etc., which was a really happy, wonderful experience for us all. We then, having left this daughter in Australia, who unfortunately had COVID when her father passed away, I took off to Australia to see her and my family for the first time for 20 years. And it was very important to me and very important to her. But the welcome, I realised while I was in Australia that my home was here. And the welcome I got from everyone when I came back was just phenomenal. It didn't matter which member of staff it was, they all welcomed me back. And I feel so supportive, so happy, and so much I want to give to other families or those that don't have family that I immediately signed up to volunteer here as well, because I know how much they gave to Alan and I, and gave us a husband and wife feeling back again, that I will help as much as I can from now on for others here, because it's just too good a place not to continue with that sort of life.